Hello, I really felt that I should do a follow-up video to the one about the Ouija boards and the seances, because I realised that I might be talking to people who have already done this and have got a problem, or there might be somebody that has moved into a disturbed home environment or been unfortunate enough to attract one of these vampiric entity pests just by virtue of being a lovely, open, sensitive person, because these things are a bit like moths to a flame. Only moths are benevolent and these things are generally not, although they can't help what they are. They just are what they are. But what they are is very naughty, is putting it mildly, and I don't want to dwell on them or the negative, because that's basically giving them more food. When these things used to happen to me, I wanted to talk about them to anybody that would give me a fair hearing, and I found that the more you talked about it, the more you kind of raised the energy in the room for them, and things would turn quite nasty because you'd kind of drawn them in by talking about them. So you kind of can't win in a way. But if we don't talk about them, then there are people out there who might have problems, and I'm going to talk about just briefly. Let's not give them anything, but briefly, these are the kind of problems you might have, and that might be for any of the reasons that I mentioned in my opening bit there. You may have dabbled in something, you know, made a mistake and invited something in that you shouldn't have done, or maybe the something was already there in somewhere that you're living or whatever. Anyway, these things have got a very limited repertoire of party tricks, and you will know if you have one of these things. I mean, you'll be able to feel it anyway, unless you're there are plenty of people that are, you know, completely oblivious to all sorts of energies and feelings and everything else. But I'm presuming that if you're watching this, you've at least got an interest, or probably that you are, for want of a better word, psychically open, or open to experiences, or just deeply sensitive soul. So yes, they have a limited repertoire of party pieces. So have you experienced any of the following? Because they don't do a lot else, to be honest. But what they do is quite disturbing, and especially if you're on your own or you haven't got anybody that you can talk to. I have been very lucky, if you want to use that word, because a lot of the time these things happened to me, I was with somebody else, and that somebody else tended to be a skeptical person, which had two effects. One was beneficial because I had corroboration from somebody who wasn't like me, who was a kind of, you know, nuts and bolts kind of person that didn't really believe in this stuff, but then they experienced it with me. So it was good in that way, because I had their backup that you know, it did happen, it was real. But also it didn't work very well, because a lot of the time that person will be frightened away because they didn't want to be around somebody that attracted this sort of thing. Anyway, what is that sort of thing? The sort of things that they do are, well, they do this. They knock a lot in the middle of the night. 3 times is quite common. I've had disembodied doorbells go in the middle of the night when I haven't even got a doorbell. So that's one of their little things that they do. It's quite pathetic, really. What else do they do? They make smells. Some people might have experienced lovely smells, or smells that are evocative of something. That in my case, I get smells when people have either just passed away or are going to, and it will be something that is connected to them, something quite random seemingly in the universe, but I will understand its meaning. That's different. The smells that these things make are bad smells. I used to live in a particularly sort of active house in Glastonbury. It was very, very active. I knew that before I moved into it, and there was one particular thing that haunted that place, who we referred to as Mr. Poo Pong, because he just stank, really. And what you'll notice about the smells that these things create is like the 1 minute they're there and they're really strong. It's like a sewage farm has just opened up in your living room and it's and the next minute it's gone. So it's not a real smell. It's just something that they do, and it's charming and disgusting. Yeah, I don't mean it's charming. It's just they're just so tacky, really. These creatures, they are literally tacky and dirty and ugh. And what else do they do besides smells? They do crashes and bangs. I've heard things like wardrobes being pushed down the stairs. Again, in the company of other people. I've heard something that sounds like a truck smashing into the side of a house when there's nothing there at all. So they're very adept at doing noises and smells. But they're not good, and they tend to happen at points when you're just when you're really just not expecting anything, and you know there's no way. I mean, I was with one person when I heard the wardrobe crashing down the stairs noise, and there's no way that it could have come from anywhere at all. So yeah, they do these things. They also do the classic of disappearing and reappearing objects, and sometimes the objects do not reappear. And when they do reappear, they reappear somewhere where you know it is absolutely impossible. For instance, I mentioned this in the first video, I think, but I remember somebody's shoe turning up on the top of a light shade. I remember things ending up in the fridge. This places where you know that it was not possible that you put that thing because it is completely incongruous, and you know you just wouldn't do it. But they do, and they seem to get some sort of kick out of doing your head in, and it's usually the thing that you want. You know, it's keys, a shoe. I also remember somebody searching for a boot or something, and then they got into bed and they looked on the pillow, and it was on the pillow where they knew that they couldn't possibly have put it, and they, you know, it wasn't there in the morning. When they came back, there it was. And it's this happened to me in so many different places with so many different people. It was not, you know, some trickster in the household. And the people that experienced it with me were genuinely freaked out by it. So it was nobody playing tricks. It was the thing that I had inadvertently, through doing stupid things like the Ouija, attracted to me. The Ouija, sorry, not the Ouija. But my little bugbears about calling it the right thing. Anyway. Yes, so they do the disappearing objects. There is actually something known as disappearing object syndrome for people who don't believe in anything at all unseen. They've kind of given it some sort of scientific scenario where things do disappear and they do reappear again in strange places. That's just, yeah, they've tried to explain it away, but it happens to a lot of people, so it's kind of a low grade kind of. In the past, people would have thought that they had a naughty pixie in the house or something of that ilk, but you know, these things are not just naughty. They are designed to wear you down and make you frightened, because if you do hear crashes and bangs and horrible, really foul smells and things in the middle of the night and things continually disappearing and heat and cold where there shouldn't be any heat and cold, like extremes of temperature, disembodied footsteps, black shadows, waking at the same time in the middle of the night and feeling very, very strange, like there's almost an electrical charge in the room. They have all of these in their repertoire. They just create bad feelings between people. They like arguments, they like stirring things up, they like to just create an atmosphere that will give them what they want, which is basically fear, disgruntlement, anything nasty. They'll suck it up. You know, that's their food. I know a lot of you are going to be thinking that this is just daft, but I'm sorry. I wish it was. I wish it was. I bet the people that experienced it with me wished it was too. But yeah, I'm afraid it's not a joke, and it's not make believe. It does happen. These things are out there. Like, I know I keep using poor old wasps as my analogy, but you know, there are creatures out there that aren't evil or whatever, but they will do you harm because that's what they do. You know, and we're all part of the rich tapestry of existence on multi levels of reality. So you can't really blame them. They're just trying to do, you know, get food, but we're the food, so we have to make sure that we're not their food and we don't feed them, which is all very well and good when this is going on and you're frightened, especially if you're on your own and this is happening. You know, it's not nice. So I'm not wanting to promote my work or say, buy this book, this will sort you out, but that's why I wrote them. I wrote this one especially to tell my story about how it started with the Ouija board and everything else. And that's quite an old book now, but it's one of my favourites because it's very open, and it will give you, you know, it tells you my journey and how I struggled to find answers, and it's very one of my favourite words. It's very authentic. It's real. It's what actually happened, and it might help you if you can get hold of it. And then I moved on some years later to this. I called it the definitive guide to living and working with the unseen, but I think that was a bit over the top, because as soon as you write a book, you've moved on from it, so it could never be definitive, and the unseen is infinite. So, you know, yeah, that was a little bit of a ridiculous statement, but I stand by this book in terms of it will help you to live a life and put things in place where you are not vulnerable to these things. If you already have a problem, it will help you solve the problem, and so will this one. There are things in there too, but this one is a handbook. It's a guidebook to dealing with it and to living a life. If you are an open, sensitive, sorry, they're so naff, these words, aren't they? Psychic person who hasn't got a framework, this will give you one, and it's tried and tested. It all comes from my experience, and it works. So it will give you a whole way of living. You know, it's not prescriptive in a sense, but it will allow you to tailor my advice into how you live, so that you're not prone to these things happening. Sorry, I feel like I'm going to cough. I hope I don't. I feel like it's my responsibility to do this. I know it seems like I'm on a sales pitch, but I'm really not. I wrote these books to help, and I've virtually made nothing from them. This one, virtually pence. This one, I gave the earnings away to Animal Aid. So, yeah, it's not money-making scheme. It's because I genuinely felt a need to help people, because living with this stuff is not fun. It is exhausting, it's disturbing, it alienates you from people because other people don't want to be around it. And these things, if you don't know what you're doing, they will persist. And they persisted with me for many, many years until I found someone that could help me. And this person helped me to be able to write these books and give me a framework for not having this. I mean, these things happen to me periodically when I'm vulnerable or weak or whatever, you know, but I try not to feed them. I mean, as tiresome as it is to be woken up by a disembodied knocking that seems to be coming from your wall or underneath your bed, I try not to get into a what I would have before and give them a load of panic. I just think, oh, for God's sake, you stupid, get away. Anyway, and there's plenty of things you can do on the spot to protect yourself from them and not give them anything. Anyway, I think I've said enough, haven't I? I didn't want to dwell on the negative. I hope I haven't. These books contain a lot of loveliness about how wonderful it is to work with the unseen and to have genuine unseen companions, and how enriching it is to walk with spirit in a safe way, and not the random opening your door to any old thing that the Ouija board is, or a seance. Anyway, I just included this book because this is the last one that I wrote, so it's the most up to date, but this one is more about what the second video was about, which is just it's more about a way of seeing the world and how we experience it, and how it's about a way of life more than this one, which is guidance about how to, well, that, basically, how to do that. So this one is more about a whole way of being and seeing. So I hope I've made that clear without seeming like I'm just selling books, which I am absolutely not. And I hope that one of those will help you if you're in need, because I'm not in a position to do so. That's why I wrote the books. And I hope they will help. Actually, I hope that you won't need them at all, but just in case, eh? Lots of love. Thank you for watching, and don't be afraid of all this. Just learn what to do safely.